The question is, can you do permaculture like really micro scale? So my name is Lars, and me and two other friends have a permaculture farm. It's about 7 acres, 2.9 hectares, and but my question is, can you like really micro farm? Can I apply the principle of permaculture at home on my property? And can I grow my own food? It's just me and my dog, and we're trying to live the permaculture life. It's the room where I sleep up there, and yesterday morning I woke up to the sound of the hornet queen that's here on the property, and she decided to inspect the open spaces above the room where I sleep. And at first I thought, oh no, but then I thought, well, why not? Just let her choose the best place for her, and keep the windows closed if she decides to move in there. But I also thought, man, I gotta start this vlog. I gotta start it now, because too much good is happening here. We were in rhododendron country here. Call them rhody-dodies. Isn't it amazing how beautiful these flowers are? It amazes me every time I see them. Last year I saved this flower. I don't even know what it is. It was like in a really expensive seed mix, and it has this bright yellow flowers and almost like a sunflower. Amazing leaves. I don't know what it is, so I took some of the seeds, and I'm gonna seed that. Try to get it germinated. What I find is that it hurts really when you lose food to ants or snails or any other critter that you want to eat yourself at home. It's much different than on the farm. I don't know who this guy was, but he just eats away the skin, and half my kale died. Just died. So 2 years ago, she built a nest in my workshop, and that was pretty strange, because every time you'd go into the workshop and maybe forget that there's a nest somewhere under the roof, you'd get the buzzes, because one of the hornet guards would show up and scare you out of the workshop. So that was difficult. The road where I live is called Asparagus Highway. Mostly because everybody goes fast there, faster than the allowed 20 miles per hour or 30 kilometers per hour. And the tractor drivers go especially fast, and of course they are stressed this time of the season. So much work to do and so little time, and we got many horses in this town, and so a friend of mine got thrown off her horse today and got hurt really bad, because the tractor driver would slow down, but then when he passed, he would go fast again. And I thought regenerative agriculture is tractor drivers going slow, not having so much work to do, less tractors and less stress. Isn't that good? So to get good germination out of my seeds, I got me a set of soil blockers. I got this big one here. Today I got these cube inserts for it. So the little cubes that the little soil cube maker makes fit into the bigger cubes. A couple of years ago, Harvard's autoimmune specialists found out just how dangerous coffee lids are for your health, and all the crap that's in the plastic, and the cheap plastic that we germinate our seeds in, like seed trays and stuff, is nothing better. And so moving to soil blocks a good chance to get away from the toxic load of plastic. And it is sort of meditative to prep just one seed at a time. So I got radishes, more radishes and beets, and clay will help to form soil blocks better. So today I did a short visit to the farm. The farm is buzzing with life. So the pigs, since they're not in an area of the farm where there's trees, get a well-deserved refreshment. The pigs enjoy their meal of orge, which is all over the place and can be used like spinach and is a stimulant for digestion. So germination is just happening, and it seems like if you use these little soil blocks, since air and light and warmth can get to the seeds from 5 different sides, they seem to germinate much quicker, and the roots tend to develop much quicker. And you also need to have the right mixture of compost, grit, and clay. Only my yellow flowers didn't germinate, and I already thought they would be kind of difficult. Justin Rhodes always says, nature is modest, she covers herself. And if you take a look at a forest, there's no bare earth, it's covered. And that means there's less evaporation, and there's tons of more soil life. And that's what I do in my garden. I want explicit soil life, and I don't want to water my plants. So when you plant into a mulched bed like that, you just have to spread the mulch apart. Underneath, the soil is soft and dark and full of life, and you can just see the soil life underneath. And then you firm the mulch back together, and you're done. You water once, and then not anymore. In my pond swims the dream of cultivating shiitake mushrooms on birch logs. So I researched the subject for quite a while, like 30 to 40 hours. But honestly, I still don't know how mycelium works. And mycelium is the internet of the soil, and no-dig gardening gives you the chance to develop mycelium in the soil, and it will act as a sponge to retain moisture. So I inoculated birch logs with grain spawn of shiitake, and I hope that the mycelium grows. And every 4 weeks I put them in the pond to let them soak, and I'm hoping. This book must be from the 80s, and bought it and gave it as a birthday present to a friend. It's a sad book, because many of the species that are found in the book are so amazing, but I've never seen them, and maybe they're no longer to be found anywhere in Europe. I mean, just look at this awesome design. How much more beautiful can you make a moth? with this one here. The designer just must have had fun putting these together. I had like 10 butterflies or less this year in my garden. But a week ago a friend came by and he told me that he's been a beekeeper for 3 years now. And I was just, one of my greatest wishes was to have bees in my garden again. And so I asked him, couldn't you just put a box of bees here in my garden? And he said yes. Bees are sort of like a monoculture, but they are the genius of monocultures. Highly structured and highly cooperative, functioning like a superorganism. There are just so many things you can learn while observing bees and ants, from which I have lots in my garden. So frankly, I'm just happy that biodiversity got raised in my permaculture garden through a colony forming insect like bees. I'm really grateful. And by the way, also terriers like sweet stuff. Drought and desertification happen when the natural water cycles of the earth are messed up. The water holding capacities of a food forest with a rich topsoil and covering far exceed those of a monoculture, and this balances the natural water cycle because infiltration is slowed down. Water stays there where it's needed. In my area, where rainfall is usually sufficient, you can almost talk about desertification because the soil qualities have turned so bad. Soils are so sandy, water holding capacities are almost zero, and farmers just irrigate like crazy. So the only thing you can do is have parts of the garden where the evaporation from the ground is almost zero. All the green areas that you can see here, I plan on covering with a thick layer of mulch with the right carbon-nitrogen ratio so that soil life can just boom and evaporation is almost zero. Fruit onset on the farm has just been amazing, and trailblazing are our apples, but we haven't mulched a whole lot at the beginning. At first we were just cutting the hay around the trees and mulching around the root balls. But as the drought continued, we were starting to mulch our apple cider trees, which are really young, really big time, to limit any evaporation around the root systems. And this little rocket dog just doesn't mind how hot it is. In my area, where there's usually plenty of water, some of the wells after this long drought ran dry. But what is the capacity of soil to retain water? Fungi increase the water holding capacity of the soil like nothing else. In fact, they say that fungi are the internet of the soil because they interconnect plants and they leave a network of branches that when they die has the ability to host organisms and also retain water. This is the area of soil that a normal root can access. So the fungus is attracted to the sugar that the plant produces, and what it delivers to the root is access to much more water and nutrients of the soil. Under every of my Back to Eden beds, mushrooms will develop their mycelium since they're no-till, and there is a lot of humidity there under the mulch, but the red-shaped areas, I want to focus on developing mushrooms there, and lots of mycelium, because these are sort of the woodland parts of the plot. So mycelium is increasing in my space, and but that's no good for the bees. And flowering has been crazy in this drought, because every mass flowering species has flowered 1 or 2 times already, and that's it. So the bees will find no more food, and the 8-kilogram harvest might have been the last harvest of this year. There's about a million species of fungi, and they're everywhere. They're on our skin, and they're on the skin of these pigs when they get a mud bath. And not only does it bring down their body's temperature by about 2 degrees Celsius, but the fungi that are living in the soil covering on their skin also disinfect them from bacteria. For this guy, I take orange and lemongrass essential oils for disinfection. He doesn't get a mud bath. Principle of natural forces. Work with nature rather than against the natural elements, forces, pressures, processes, agencies, and evolutions, so that we assist rather than impede natural developments. This is a mink. Really, really cute until they're 14 weeks old. So if you plan on having chicken, a mink really poses some problems, especially when I hear him screaming at night. And we have a really crazy mink. He just catches birds and then he eats them on top of people's motors underneath the hoods. We also have a fox here, and he's been known for walking around the neighborhood quite freely, and many people have seen him. So I'm planning on making the fox's life miserable by putting bacon on the electric fence at night, because then the chickens don't go for it. And but this should make the fox's life miserable enough to avoid my electric fence. One hunter that I'm especially fond of is this guy. We found him when we took down the wooden beams. He was living there. He ain't gonna attack my chickens, and the fox is gonna go for the bacon. So this guy wasn't too happy that I put him back in his nest, where he mostly will have shelter and free food. So plant food is also important in a permaculture scheme, and you want to have plants that provide the food, not chemical fertilizers. Nitrogen is an element that every plant cell needs to be established, and I found one of the trees in my garden is a so-called nitrogen fixer. It has the ability, through interaction with the bacteria in the soil around the root tips, to provide the soil with nitrogen. A tree of that size has a huge root system, and so all the area around it is supplied with nitrogen. The only offset is that it has like really dangerous thorns, and here you can see the flowers, which are legumes. When you take a look at this chart, you can see that a guild consists of a canopy, understory, fruit and nut trees, shrubs, herbs and vegetables, ground cover, roots, and vines that grow up into the canopy. And last but not least, one of these plants has to be a nitrogen fixer to support nitrogen for the other plants. So here I got the nitrogen fixer, which is also the canopy, and underneath I have 2 pear trees, and a lot is missing, huh? So underneath my 2 canopy nitrogen fixers, I could add a couple more fruit trees, fruiting shrubs, which I don't have there. I have a rose that is just flamboyant underneath the nitrogen fixer, plus fruit-bearing bushes and roots and even fungi. So Queenie's been checking out the house once more. Well, she doesn't seem to be a normal hornet, because she seems to be interested in music, and so she's been checking out my guitar.